Good afternoon, and thanks for joining SMTV Live on this Friday. I'm Duncan Gilman.
And I'm Jeff Kilman.
Jeff is Vice President of Strategy and Innovation here at Splash Media. He plays a huge role in the success of our clients' social media campaigns with his big ideas and creativity. So it's great to have you as a special guest on the show today.
Thank you, Duncan.
We're here to keep you up to date with the latest buzz in social media. People are still talking about Facebook commercial. Big Bird is capitalizing on Mitt Romney's comments in the recent presidential debate. And Facebook is proud of another number besides just the 1 billion mark, which is pretty huge itself that we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Facebook commercial chairs that came out, I think they've actually finally pushed Clint Eastwood's chair to the side as the most popular chair talked about on the online community. I found it interesting that Facebook is, coming out with its first commercial ever, and that they felt the need to have an analogy to explain to us what Facebook is all about. I think with those numbers that we just described, most of us know what Facebook is, so did we really need an analogy commercial to help us understand it?
Right, it's like trying to explain what water is.
Exactly.
With an analogy. And I also don't understand the need to kind of tug at your heartstrings a little bit. It seemed like it was trying to be a little on the emotional side, but does Facebook really need to be emotional in a commercial?
Yeah, it was an interesting play that it felt very startup to me when we're dealing with one of the most established communities in the world. It felt like they needed to be talking about what a great country they are because they're the size of a country and the things that it does for its members and for its people. Last time I checked, if I sit in a chair without a tablet, a smartphone, or a computer, I'm not on Facebook. And if you look at the commercial, not once do they show any of those devices, which I found very, very interesting that it was playing away from the sheer fact that it's the interconnection and bringing people together through those devices.
Right, that was commented several times on other sites that one of the people who sat down in a chair had a book.
Yeah. Unless it's about Mark Zuckerberg, I really didn't see the connection as well.
Yeah, and I think one very significant number now, in addition to the fact that it's the size of a country with 1 billion users a month, is that there are 140.3 billion connections.
Yeah.
That's how many friendships there are. So if you break it down, the average would be 140 connections per person.
Yeah, and you think about what that really means, especially for brands. When you think about brands that are trying to figure out what do they do in this Facebook community or should they play inside the Facebook community, well, there's the slam dunk right there. If you can find that one person who finds a connection with your brand, you're getting to 100 people for that one connection on average. And in my days of working in big brands before Facebook, we would have coveted those relationships and taking care of those people that could get us to 100 more people that have similar interests, that trust that person. That's an amazing thing when we think about it. The second big piece is you think about what's changed in the consumer psyche. That the consumer psychological behavior is all about connection.
Yeah.
And they're driving those connections and wanting to connect with people. I'm sure like you, Duncan, I've got folks on Facebook that I talk to, and without Facebook, I wouldn't have talked to in 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing thing when you think about I could be influencing people, and they're influencing me in purchases, behavior, where I go, when I go, that I haven't talked to in 20 years.
I mean, so glad you brought up that last point. I'm going to show my inner nerd here for a second. But the number 140 is also interesting because it closes in on that number of connections that supposedly we're able to maintain. Robin Dunbar came up with this number of 150 or so of these personal connections that we can actually physically maintain in our brain. And it'll be really interesting to see once Facebook goes beyond 1 billion users, how is that number going to grow, and are we going to get beyond 150 average connections per person?
Yeah, and you see it talked about, now it's all about how can I filter my news feed? How can I pare down? How can I not see the fact that someone from 20 years ago likes to put up every recipe that she just tried on Facebook? That might not interest me, but I don't want to get rid of her as a friend, but I might not want to see everything that she talks about inside of Facebook. So you're going to start seeing tools, and you're going to see a cottage industry come out around how do we make this technology even more personal and timely and relevant, which are words we'll talk a lot about as we move forward.
Absolutely, especially dealing with the timeliness of social media. We saw, of course, the first of our 4 presidential debates.
Yes.
And which is really neat for social media. Not only was it broadcast live on YouTube, but we're seeing some interesting responses from brands kind of chiming in as people respond to what's being said in the debates, one of which was the little KitchenAid debacle.
Yes.
We saw one person who is in charge, one of the people in charge of the KitchenAid Twitter account, account, tweeting mistakenly for KitchenAid when he meant to tweet for himself on his personal profile. And then, of course, the issue with Big Bird, Mitt Romney saying that he loves Big Bird but cutting PBS funding.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, here's a huge brand that we all know and love. I grew up on Sesame Street, and all of a sudden there's this perceived attack on a brand in the middle of this political debate. And immediately you see accounts being formed. You see Big Bird fired coming up on Twitter.
31,000 followers now.
I mean, it's amazing, and I can't imagine being the brand manager and sitting back and going, thank you. I mean, here are people that they didn't have to say a word, and here comes their brand advocates to the rescue in masses talking about how dare you attack the brand that we love. Imagine the Oreos brand manager sitting back going, if only Mitt Romney would have said he was going to never eat an Oreo again. That would have been great for his numbers.
Of that to happen. That's
Absolutely.
Exactly right. That's funny. And I totally agree. We see these brands that are in a way under attack, or they probably felt attacked, but kudos to both these brands, to KitchenAid, whose marketing coordinator or director responded personally with her name saying, get in touch with me, I want to explain the whole situation. And then, of course, PBS capitalizing with this ad bid on Twitter, and I just pulled it up on the screen here so that when you search for Big Bird, it's a promoted tweet that comes up from PBS that says PBS is trusted, value, and essential, see why, and takes you to this Value PBS site.
I mean, once again, showing the nimbleness of these organizations and the fact that I don't think either one had plans inside of their 36-month marketing strategy for these campaigns, but way to jump on the fact that because it's timely, because it's relevant, and their brand is being discussed by their influencers, they're able to jump on it and make it into a fantastic campaign.
That's really impressive for a big brand like this to be able to do that and be nimble like that.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's take a couple of questions from our viewers today. We're here to help you make the most out of your campaigns, and whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, your blog, Pinterest, whatever you're working on, let us know what questions you have because we'd love to help you out.
Absolutely. So you can email us your questions to questions@splashmediau.com, or you can tweet them to us by using the hashtag SMTV Questions.
First question today is from Marcus. Marcus asks, how does social media affect my overall brand strategy?
Well, Marcus, great question. I think the amazing part about what social media has done for brands is that it is demanding that brands have a soul. And when you think about it, it really is counterintuitive to how we behave as human beings. And it's just downright funny when you think about it. We expect brands in social media to deal with us with a soul. We expect an inanimate object like KitchenAid, like PBS, to deal with us one-on-one, form a relationship with us, have empathy for how we're feeling and how we believe, and deal with us one-on-one in that relationship. The brands that realize that are the brands that build social media into the overall brand strategy very, very effectively.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting to see how the brand strategy is expanding beyond social media. So we talk obviously all about social media here, but the brand strategy is expanding regardless of what's going on in social media, and it's interesting to see how social media is being brought into that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at billboards as a great example, a couple years ago, billboards had phone numbers on them, and you were supposed to call the number. Well, that's awfully dangerous. And then they started putting up large URLs, which was always my favorite. Where they say, go to www. What am I supposed to do with that? And now you're seeing the Facebook logo just sitting there, just reminding you that that's where you can find that brand and interact with that message. That's a huge difference. And just the fact that that icon now demands us and tells us to go have a relationship with that brand is huge.
Right, seeing the same thing on TV too. Those little icons pop up on commercials.
It's an amazing phenomenon that, once again, if as a brand you don't think that social media is effective for you, you're already being talked about. It's just a matter of, are you talking back?
That's a great point, yeah.
Great. Well, here's another interesting question from Amy. My CEO is caught up in the number of views of our videos on YouTube. Is it the quantity or is it the quality when it comes to the views?
It is the quality of the views, because as much as YouTube can go through, or Google can go through and see this video has 100 views, 1,000 views, 1,000,000 views, it must be important. It's the quality of the people who are not robots, who are actual people viewing your video who can respond and comment and share your video that are really going to push it up to the top.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm big into believing in the quality of the folks and in the finding the right influencers. There is a critical mass. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that numbers don't matter to some degree. I think each brand needs to look at what's that critical mass where the conversation then can spread to that 1 to 100 ratio in Facebook, the ratios that we're seeing in Twitter, and the ratios that we see in YouTube, so that, once again, you can get it up to the influencers, let them spread it out, but then it's all about, are we getting to the right people? The best analogy I always use, and there I am, this is a good use of an analogy, is Rogaine. So Rogaine putting up a really cool viral video on their product, and me seeing it, not going to do a lot of good for Rogaine. I'm not really in their target demo, and I'm not going to be a strong user of Rogaine. But me being able to influence others that might be follically challenged a little less than me, that might be worth it.
Very true. And I like that you also brought up the right influencers, not only your own target audience and being able to find them and market to them as customers, but we're seeing such interesting trends. So to compare on Twitter, interesting trends between the right influencer sending out a message, and then search. We saw a search example on Big Bird, where everybody is suddenly talking about this one topic, and we're seeing sites and profiles come up. But if you send it to the right influencer, and the example that I think of is when Matt Lauer first joined Twitter earlier this year, and he talked about it on Today, and Justin Bieber, with his millions and millions of followers on Twitter, sent out a tweet that says, "Follow my man, Matt Lauer, on Twitter," and suddenly, 60,000 followers in an hour.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen it with charitable organizations using the celebrity endorsement.
Right.
But more importantly, it's not just that. We deal with clients every day that are looking for that person, that mom, who's that celebrity inside of their world, who can push out the best in diapers or the best in family care or tutoring. We deal with clients every day that need to find that celebrity, and it's not always Justin Bieber.
It's not always a household name.
It's that it's that mom or that dad or it's that geek that pushes out that great new technology product and is always the early adopter. It's getting to those people that have huge influence and have huge trust.
That is so important, absolutely.
Yep.
That's going to do it for our show today, but thanks for joining us this Friday for our live broadcast of SMTV. For Splash Media, I'm Duncan Gilman.
And I'm Jeff Kilman. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a great, great weekend.